Thank you, Bhavna, and very good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Well, it's more than a year that we are now doing all of these conferences and seminars virtually, but I'm still getting used to it, right? But hey, I mean, we have done a wonderful job. It's a balancing act. Uh, Technology have stepped up big time. We have stepped up big time. Um, but talk about balance. I mean, that's what we will talk about today. So digital is the buzzword, more so during and after COVID. Uh, but there are still different lines of balance that we have to practice to really make it fruitful. So what we are going to talk about in next hour or so is how can we drive effortless customer journey, how can we drive significant customer engagement yet drive efficiency, how can we drive our customers towards DIY, self-service, and yet be there with them, without losing the human touch. How do we really do this balancing act? And I'm grateful to have an excellent panel with a very diverse background. So we have bankers, we have experts from manufacturing, we have got hospitality, and we have got medical critical care. So before we pass it on to get views from different industry, let's just try to understand why are we even talking about it, right? So if you look back, the genesis of digital really has been to offer customer the choice, the flexibility, the control to do things their way, what they want to do at the time of their choice, the channel of their choice, to the extent that they want to do in the context of their choice, right? And when the companies really moved in that trajectory, now guess what? We also got a lot of efficiencies. That reduced touch points, that eliminated wastage. But in this mad rush to convert pretty much most or all of our digital journeys, or customer journeys into digital, there is also a risk. And the risk is, are we really leaving the customers on their own at a very critical point, when they're confused, when they are not knowing what to do? And as a result, net, it defeats the sole purpose from which we started off, right? So that's the scenario. And we will take views to see if that is really a view we are getting from customers, and if we are, and how are we responding. Now, talking about, I represent banking. So if I just talk about banking, I think the first few years, the journey was easy because we are, again, mostly talking about standard banking procedures. So you're mostly doing digital payments, checking card balances, and doing a bit of account navigation, etc. And we are mostly dealing with pretty much digital savvy population, right? Then two things started to happen. One, as a banker, we wanted to expand our horizon. So most of our account opening journeys are digital now. Most of our insurance and solicitation-based sales are gradually moving online, digital, as well as we are drawing in a lot of population from the so-called people who are not really used to do digital in their earlier lives, senior citizens, people from faraway places. And that's where we also saw a bit of void to fill up. And few things that I see as trends emerging now as a response, right? I think one thing that, so when we talk to the customer to try to see where are you still seeing a bit of void, I spotted two to three things. One is context. So when you talk to a human, you expect that they have that context, they respond accordingly. Second is solicitation. Third is empathy. So two, three things that I see as a response now, even in banking, is one, the digital journeys themselves are no longer straight lines, right? So there is an enormous effort to bring context to that itself. So probably not the right time to sell a travel insurance is not when you're buying dog food online, right? It's probably when you are trying to buy a ticket, or you're trying to buy a Forex card, right? So that kind of context is getting baked in. Hopefully that gives you a bit of human feel. So that's one. Now, the second is, I see a lot of convergence in channels. So what we said was, okay, if you're really not comfortable doing the entire straight line journey, can you do a fragment of it, right? So a couple of things that really happened very well is digital banking, deposit slips, etc. So we say, I mean, if you're really not fully digital, can you fill up some of these slips online and then walk into a branch? I mean, even if you're actually in the branch, but you're not starting it from scratch, you have got to a point. And the third thing that I'm seeing, and the last thing is the empathy part, right? So we are no longer leaving the customer completely with a chatbot. So the chatbot, yes, to start off, and then probably, if the customer really needs human touch, can we pass it on, trapping the right words of emergency, cards, etc., to a human who can really lead, who can lead the conversation. And if the customer is really insisting on talking to someone, provide that contact point, even virtual. So virtual relationship manager is a big thing that we have been working for the last 2 to 3 years, and I only see that growing bigger. So, Phil, so much for banking. Probably time to get a bit of different context. And I'll probably start off with Tushar, yourself. Hospitality and travel, right? Last 1 year probably have seen one of the most challenging times for all industry, but especially for travel. But they say, you probably are at your best game when you are facing the biggest challenges. So what are you seeing from your customers, during COVID, even pre-COVID, as a response, as a preference, as a choice? And in travel, how are you doing this balancing act, Tushar?
I'm sorry, I got dropped out of the session. Can you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
Oh, no, yeah, so we are just trying to get your views. I mean, so travel industry
Yes.
Have been obviously adopting digital, but last year, especially during COVID, people would be anxious.
Yeah.
And they say, you need more human involvement when someone is anxious. But at the same time, you can't really hop into the office because you have to maintain social distancing. So how did you really bridge that gap, and what has been the learning, and how are you doing this?
So it was a challenge. It was a challenge for us as well. And most of our customers, so since we are in the business of selling holiday packages and not dry products like flights and hotels, then obviously we sell that, but large part of our business comes from holiday packages. That's why in that journey, customer needs bit of handholding. And SOTC and Thomas Cook being old brands, as in we have been in the country since almost 100 years. And so we also have many customers who are 45 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus, who really need handholding, and we can't just provide them a digital journey where they go on the website and do everything on their own. So pre-COVID also, we had a lot of human interaction and a lot of facilities to handhold the customer complete their transaction either on website or outside website. But this was all happening through our retail channels or our retail stores or call centers, where people were physically sitting and providing assistance to the customer. During lockdown, what happened? What we did, we shifted all this assistance virtual call centers. So people who were attending to calls from call center started taking calls from home. Even retails to people working in our retail outlets, earlier they used to go to a store and attend to customer face to face. They started taking calls from home on their mobile. We also launched something called virtual store, where customer can go on the website, initiate virtual store, and have a video conference with the salesperson. We could also do that when customer has spoken to us but still wants a face to the name and wants to discuss something more, wants to look at the itinerary, look at the video, and all these things we could do through virtual store. And we provided this service not only for holidays but also for forex, because we saw great surge in the remittance business. A lot of people who would usually come back to India, or people who will travel, some people might travel from here to their children in, say, in US or UK, not travel. So we saw a surge in remittance. For remittance and forex kind of delivery also, virtual store came in handy. So these two things we maintained. We never lost touch with our customer. We were continuously communicating, and we were also providing assistance that we were providing pre-COVID. Only thing
Awesome.
is, physical walk-in or physical interaction was not there, but we tried to fulfill that through a virtual online kind of interaction or on call. We were also doing WhatsApp calls with our customers. So even if customer is not it is not very convenient for the customer to go to the website, click on the link and all that, we were still letting them do a virtual call through WhatsApp. So whichever way we could provide this comfort to our regular customers, we were doing that.
Okay, great, awesome. Yeah, and I think that's probably a great response in the time that really mattered. Okay, let me go to Viloo. You are representing medical and critical care. Really at the forefront. In these times of not only critical care but social service, and there will be a lot of anxious minds, especially in times like this, in general as well. So, and those are services which needs to happen now, solicitation that needs to happen now. How do you deal with that kind of a situation, balancing this digital versus the need for human touch?
So before I go into digital or do it yourself, the thing is that let's remember that we are a hospital, a complete multi-speciality tertiary care hospital. And yes, of course, there was a huge impact during the COVID times, in the sense that we could never sit at home. There was no work from home, so to say, for us. We were all the time in the hospital on premises, whether I'm from IT or whether it was a doctor or whether it was a nurse, we had to be on the ground. But there was a certain limitation. When we see, as a hospital, we were always having certain aspects of digitalization in the hospital, of course, with all the HIS and the lab management systems and the PACS management, the radiology management systems and MISs and whatnot. But when it came to patient services, you will definitely agree with me that the patient wants the touch and the feel of a doctor when he's coming here for a treatment. We are not selling a product off the shelf. We're not selling a garment. We're not selling medicines. We are selling a service which is a treatment for the patients who are actually not well. So therefore, as much as the technology improves, which our hospital is like a forefront runner in technology, the medical technology is extremely powerful in our hospital. But we must remember that a hospital is divided into two strong aspects. One is the administrative part of the hospital, and one is the treatment part of the hospital, or the clinical services, as we call it. When we are talking about clinical services, digitization is more on the medical front. When we are talking about administrative services, a lot of digitization can be done where the patients can be brought onto a platform like your e-commerce or your websites or your portals, or your, if a patient wants, for example, a report, a lab report or this. So you already know that everybody nowadays gets reports in their email box, or they get reports on a patient portal where they just click and they get a digital report. There's no more a requirement to come to the hospital, pick up your reports and, take the treatment. So one aspect of digitization that really we brought in during this time, which was not normally what the patient wanted, was that we brought in video consultation or telemedicine in the form of all billing consultation with the doctor, the prescriptions to be uploaded onto a digital platform, and so on. So it was a true digital platform that the patients were experiencing without having to come to the hospital, even though it is a treatment which normally they would prefer with the feel of a person in the form of a doctor.
Great. Yeah, and that's difficult times, and thanks to you and the team and many other medical professionals who have really held the front so well for us. Thank you. Okay, so now let's get some manufacturing views now. Dhaval, in your world, and again, you're leading IT in a manufacturing setup. Um, are you again mostly inclined to make the technology more closer to human-like, or you would also say that there are still some domains, some areas that is still better left for human? We focus on the other parts which are more amenable to digital. What has been your strategy in manufacturing?
Thank you, Subhadip. And firstly, a very good afternoon to all my fellow panelists and listeners. Hope all of you are doing well and safe in these trying times. Um, Firstly, before I get into specifics of how we are dealing with it, let me tell you the approach that we tend to take. And I think it revolves around one question, and I think it applies largely to all industries as well, is to how well you know your customer, right? And if you know your customer well, then you know what is the journey he takes. So it's all about knowing your customer well and crafting the journeys accordingly. And then once you have crafted the journeys, that's when you introduce your moments of truth, and that's where you use levers such as technology to say. And what I firmly believe is that the technology has to do one of the two things. Either it has to reduce the effort, say like cutting through the clutter or easing, or it has to provide delight, right? Only if technology is able to do that, then then the digital enablement is the most used, because adoption is one of the biggest challenges given any IT initiative that we take upon. It should not look like you're force fitting technology and making customers use them. Now coming to us, so we have taken the approach which I said, that we have crafted a journey. We have identified personas. We have identified what interests the people the most, and then look at, okay, which are the pockets where technology makes the most sense, which are the most likely where the customers will adopt them seamlessly without any resistance or with lesser resistance, with minimum training effort, and we delivered on technology of their choice, or say form factors of their choice. So we being in paints, we have two businesses, which one is industrial and other is decorative. And the principles that I spoke about apply more to the decorative, while they do apply to industrial as well, because the decorative business deals with the B2C part of it, which is for people like you and me who would want to paint their home. So ideally, where does the journey start? You would want to know as to okay, what is the shade that looks the best in my house, right? That's the primary question whenever you want to paint. So interestingly here, the people don't even talk about the product. They are not worried about the brand, or they are not talking about the product. They're talking about the shade. That's how it starts, right? And the classical journey is that a contractor will walk into a house with a shade card, and then you would browse through it. You would go through shades, hundreds of shades, thousands of shades, without even knowing which company you're browsing for. Actually, you're completely dependent on the contractor here. And then you will choose one shade, and then he will possibly go and get it, and you don't even know whether he's getting it from the same vendor whose shade card you saw, or he's getting from somebody who's offering him a better loyalty or a better price. So this was a question we wanted to sort. So that's where we said that, okay, this is something where digital can help, and and it is all based on profound research. So the two things came out. One is that the customer doesn't want to see the shade on the shade card. He wants to see the shade in his environment. He wants to see it on his wall. He wants to see it how it will look with his decor, right? With the kind of furniture he's having, or with the kind of appliances he's placing around it, with the kind of mood that he is in normally, what kind of a person he is in. So that's where we said that, okay, here something called a color assistant or a virtual assistant will make sense. So what we have done is we have actually used the augmented reality, and what we have done is that you can use the app, and you can point your camera at the wall of your house, and you can use any of the shades from our shade card, and you can actually paint it real time, and it is able to do the demarcations, and it will move with the way you move the camera around and stuff. So that's where it is helping. Like I said, it is solving the problem of cutting through the clutter. Second is that, contrary to popular belief, where we think that customer wants choice, interestingly, in some of the areas, he really doesn't want too much choice. He wants recommendations. And by recommendations, what we mean is, don't show me a shade card of thousands of shades. Tell me which are the top 3 or 5 colors that will look the best, and I'll be able to make my decision so much faster. It will be so much more profound. So that's where we are now investing into something called as a color assistant. Okay. Now coming to the question that now this is one area where we think that while technology can make recommendations, it is also the human interaction that the customer looks forward to. So for example, rather than just sending him 3 shades, it is better if somebody is sitting with him and explaining him that, okay, why this shade is something that we recommend for you. there is some science behind which, and there is some effort gone behind, arriving at these three shades. So like it's a, we're trying to find that fulcrum, we are trying to manage that fulcrum, or, find that point of balance where we say that is it physical or digital? So like we always say, it's never physical or digital. Now we are moving towards phygital, so, and the scale really depends on two things. One is the domain that you are in, and secondly, what is the use case that you are addressing. So that's my my point of view, and that's how we are approaching this, Shubhadeep.
Very valid points, Dhaval, and glad to see that, even in areas like manufacturing and like, as you said, in paint, which are not easy to really comprehend, you're able to use technology to involve customers so well. Okay, moving on. Shobhana, at Bombay, what has been your approach? Also industrial and manufacturing. How are you dealing with this balance there?
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My take on this is basically there is a definite push towards online. There is a strong preference that customers are showing towards online. However, that doesn't mean that the human interaction per se gets eliminated. So it has to coexist for the customer. The customer itself is not a single category, right? Every customer has his own set of needs and requirements, which are different. There are some categories which would prefer a complete online. There are some categories which would still prefer to go the traditional way, the look and feel, those kind of. So it's not a one size fits all approach will not work in this case. So I too think that, the coexisting of the digital and the physical will need to happen. In my opinion, when we are looking at, the customers and the needs, when you look at the convenience, possibly online is what gives you the convenience. If you have to look at the confidence, to build up the confidence in the customers, then I think that is where the physical interaction or your constant touch with the customer really comes in. So depending on the need and depending on the exact domain of the customer, one could decide which is the ideal balance of the physical and the digital. So is it convenience? Is it customization, personalization? Is it confidence building? It all depends on that one needs to decide as to which is the right balance of the physical and digital that one needs to have.
Great. Thank you, Shobhana. Okay. Vishwanath, the India Post Payment Bank, pretty much at the forefront of financial inclusion, and you must be having such a wide variety of customers, more than traditional banking setups. How are you dealing with this balance at India Post?
Hi, Subhadip. Good afternoon, and hello to every one of my co-panelists here. This has been really a trying times for us, as well as we all have been grappling with in this scenario. IPPB, that I represent is one of the youngest public sector bank, but yes, under the differentiated bank category. And as you rightly said, that we have a different customer set to deal with, and here what if you see from the day we started the journey, not very long ago, 2.5 years precisely, we have kept our approach in terms of offering to the customers in a way where we were doing assisted banking, for the customers who were actually very new to the concept of banking itself. So we, as you know, operate out of the post offices, and the postal network of India, which is the world's largest network, is something which is helping us to reach out to our customers. We have been building up technology stack for a long time, and then we deployed the entire offering with the simplicity of the front ending to be used by these postmen and the Grameen Dak Sevaks to offer the assisted banking services at the doorstep of each and every customer that we onboard. And it truly became a kind of a case study for us and for others as well, where we got into this operations across the country, none of the post office, has got left out, except the few in the areas where technology was not supporting us in terms of connectivity and the infrastructure. But yes, we spread it out very, very fast, from the date we launched. So we were doing it, in the digital banking as well as assisted banking. So self-service mode was offered. Being a banking domain player, it was a prerogative, to be offered to the customers from day one. We also went ahead with the doorstep banking in the assisted mode with the postman. Uh, in the period that we have just passed through of the pandemic, especially, we engaged little more in a way where, since these postmen and Grameen Dak Sevaks were on their job throughout the lockdowns. They were actually one of the recognized corona warriors by the government of India as well, and that never really stopped the offering of the bank to the customer in any ways. Moreover, what we did, going ahead than the existing set of offerings, we also offered products to the non-customers. We started giving the services to the non-customers as well, because we found that opportunity where people were stuck, people were not being able to get services from their own banks, their own service providers, and we started helping them as well. So for example, we brought in AEPS in the nick of time, which was helping every customer, be it a IPB customer or not, to get the at least cash withdrawals, inquiries, and other things done, without thinking of if my bank is not there, who will be there to help me. In the meanwhile, in the lockdown period, we also saw some of the natural calamity like flood and all in the eastern part of the country. That's again where we were able to deploy the digital banking support through the postmans, where people were able to access at least the financial services if they are stuck in the island or the house which is surrounded by the water all around. So people were there to go on the boat and serve them at their doorstep in those scenarios as well. So we seen that, we did that, and then we started working on the money transfer processes. We started working on life certificate issuances for people who were all stuck, all waiting for their things to get done digitally. And this was all offered while we were all challenged and posed with a kind of a threat of business being getting down. But no, we have been able to provide this much of customer journey and an experience in itself, in good times and bad times both.
Okay, thank you, Vishwanath. I think great stories, and it's great to know how everyone have responded in their own way to keep the wheel moving. As you said, digital was crucial, but more important than digital was how people have used it. Both in the company as well as have customers, how they have punched above their weight. Thank you. Awesome stories. Okay, going back, Tushar, to you. And you are, let's get a bit of marketing angle to this, right? So you are heading brand and marketing. And now one of the fields and feedback around digital is at times it has started to look a bit same, right? It's probably going back to the 90s and ATMs, right? Novelty first, utility second, and pretty much taken for granted later on, right? So in this age of commoditization of digital, how are you able to still preserve a unique brand identity within these digital journeys that a customer can still identify and recall SOTC different from the competitors?
Yeah, I believe that digital is just a medium to reach out and assist customer in doing transaction in newer ways. So whether it is a digital communication or it is non-digital communication, that doesn't matter much to the customer. Customer keeps on adapting new practices, and so earlier customer who used to use ATM would now use Google Pay. So it is just facilitating the same process through different channel, right? So it is just digitizing the same process. So you, instead of giving currency to somebody, you are giving virtual money. So similarly in travel or any other industry, that does not change. So that has not changed for anybody. As far as being unique or giving something new to the customer is concerned, for a brand like SOTC or Thomas Cook, it is the service delivery that matters, right? So we may do a service delivery via digital, or we may communicate it through digital or print or any way. So what we did during COVID times or during lockdown, what actually we tied up with some hospitals, and in fact we also got a certification through Apollo Hospitals for the processes that we are managing. So customers were very concerned about their safety on tour, or while booking, or where they are going to stay, or even in the flights. So for this whole journey, we created some regulations. We created some partnerships. So we work only with the brands who were really providing that kind of safety to the customers, like Marriott or Accor, or hotel brands like that. We also started providing certification to the customer. So when customer is communicating with us digitally or non-digitally, the uniqueness of service is maintained. So what we focused on, what kind of product or service we are offering to him, whether the channel is digital or non-digital. Like I mentioned in my earlier response, that where if the customer wanted to do a transaction through website, we provided him that option. If he wanted to speak to somebody over WhatsApp, we provided him that option. If somebody wanted to just speak on the phone, we provided him that option. So whether it was experiences to the customer, irrespective of which channel he uses, the channel which is most convenient to him. With tomorrow stores might open and customer might want to walk in. And, so that's how we focused on it.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. Really, going to you. Tushar was just talking about this choice, like offering the customer's choice, and then you brought out how the critical care and medical stood by the customers, and it's something that's more important to first serve the customer, in this case the patients, then talk about technology. But while you are giving out all these choices, there may be a bearing on the operational side, right? So when you do offer these choices, how do you really manage this difference of journeys operationally? Any insight into it?
So Shobhadip, basically a hospital is digitalized. At the core of it, the entire hospital is digital. But when it comes to a patient, the patient's touch and feel factor is the doctor, the medical treatment. So as I said, we are looking at two very, very distinct areas of the hospital where digital plays a very big role. One is the medical technologies. The patient will come. He is experiencing both the things simultaneously. He is experiencing the closeness of the doctor's touch and feel. At the same time, he is also experiencing the high-end medical technology that is giving and delivering the right results. So that is very important for a customer. And our customers are patients mostly. Of course, we have customers who are not patients, who are, you can say, healthy people who come to us for health checkups, for various aspects of, enriching their well-being. And those people are always open to get everything other than the treatment itself on the fingertips. They don't want to come to the hospital and walk in and wait for hours in a queue and do billing at the counters and all that. So those are the areas where we know the customer is wanting to experience the digital part. But when it just comes to the medical part, definitely they still want that feel to come to the hospital, that the doctor stands in front of them and speaks to them, not via a virtual medium, which they happily accepted during the COVID days. Now we are back to the normal routine. And I think the customer's mind has changed to a large extent, even when it came to, always being in front of the doctor physically. So that was the biggest change that they brought into their minds.
Great to hear. Okay, thank you. Shobhana, you are leading technology, so would love to hear a bit around technology. We have touched on it, but if you can just draw a reference to couple of the most technology with the most impact that you have seen in helping you giving this balance, the balance of engagement and convenience, both.
Right. So I think the technology that really helped us hugely during the pandemic and even otherwise is the cloud technology, which allowed us to be there online, all the time. It ensured that we did not have any kind of downtime. If the customers needed it, then we were there at the time that they needed it. So cloud technology has definitely played a huge role in ensuring the business continuity, as they say, for sure. From a personalization perspective, the digital aspect that somebody, one of the panelists also mentioned. I think these are some things that we are also exploring quite well in terms of AR, VR, because that is where the customer will get an insight on how exactly the picture would look like, and the stores would give the option of actually having the touch and feel. So that is the combination that we really look at in terms of AR, VR, plus having our presence in terms of whether it is in modern trade, whether it is in our stores, etc., where they could actually get the touch and feel. We could also do convenience in terms of shipping. If there are very standard products, then the standard products, we could give them the convenience of shipping it to them because that doesn't really need any kind of an intervention from the customer side or from our side, because they are pretty standard. So where there is a standardization, go through these normal online, it gives you the convenience. But where there is a need, like I said, to do a little bit of a tweaking, little bit of a personalization, okay, little bit of hand holding, like one of the panelists also mentioned, that is where we pitch in, okay, you get in contact with the customer, and that's how we drive the physical aspect of it, and then provide the convenience in terms of the delivery.
Okay, thank you, Shobhana. Dhaval, you talked about that wonderful illustration of how we can use technology to bring up that feeling of even paint sitting at someone's home. But when it is about designing new journeys, are there some other industries that you draw your imagination from, your inspiration from? Can you talk about a little bit about this cross industry inputs that you get to design?
Yeah, so I think while maybe this is my personal opinion, but I think a couple of industries that really clearly are leading the pack or are setting examples. One is the aggregators, and that those could be for vehicles, for food. They are really cranking up the technology up a notch, and the other ones are of course the e-commerce giants, more importantly. So today, if you talk about aggregators, most of these are doing away with the call center. They are doing away with the voice. They are all diverting the consumers to use their apps, and they are able to do it because their apps have become mature over a period of time. But not just that, but they were ready to invest, and they thought that app could completely replace a call center today. So and they are delivering the next level of customer experience. So for example, if I have an issue with say for example one of the trips that I took with one of the say vehicle aggregators or the radio cabs, within a matter of seconds is what without even any physical intervention, they are able to sort it out purely because of the amount of data that they have at hand. So, for example, they track my movement right from the time I put in my OTP to the time I'm actually, I'm completing my trip. And if I were to point out that there was a deviation in the route due to which I was charged extra, they are able to identify that very clearly upfront to say that, okay, yes, this was a route, recommended route, but this was the route that was taken, and possibly it has cost him 50 to 55 bucks more. And within a split second, that 55 rupees is credited to me. You compare it to something else where we're in the physical world, where you have to first call up the call center, you have to go through a detailed IVR, possibly explain the concept. You may face a call drop, in which case the next time you call, it will go to somebody else, and you again have to re-explain. So the customer experience completely goes for a toss. Whereas they have completely changed that. And the second is that they are able to identify. If you talk about the food aggregators, they are able to identify the moments of truth very clearly. For example, they've broken it down very clearly into delivery and food. So they'll ask you for your feedback on how did you find that delivery, whether it came on time, whether the food was, of the right temperature, right texture, right packaging. And then they will talk about whether the food was up to the standards in terms of consumption. And then they are able to collect that data as well. They are able to look at insights from there and then be able to make those recommendations to you. So clearly, these two industries are the ones that I think are real, and they're continuously evolving. They're all moving towards an ecosystem. More importantly, they just don't want to be food aggregators, or they just don't want to be e-commerce guys.
Yeah.
And if you talk about e-commerce, then they are rightly groping in the physical part as well. For example, they will tell you that, okay, you have gone through this journey, you were not able to solve your problem, would you like to call us? At one point in time, they are able to draw that intervention and they're able to connect the calls within a few seconds.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Dhaval. Okay, and finally, knowing that we are probably about to reach time, but finally going back to Vishwanath, to you again, a couple of minutes on how are you really overcoming the language barrier, and while you were already dealing with a pretty wide and unique customer base, but now you probably have to deal with many of them trying to adopt digital, which they were not doing before. So how you really did handhold them and brought them into digital?
Yeah. So from the language barrier perspective, we were very much aware from day one that we have to deal with this problem, India being many country in one country. So that was there in front of us. So we started building with the kind of understanding that we have to talk local in the local language to the local people. There is no other way of doing it. So we started working on the website, mobile app, the micro ATM app. So wherever you see these technology interfaces where customer are getting serviced, they were all being done in standard 13 language format. We started doing that, the hard work that goes behind doing all this translations and creating that kind of interface, because the problem is it was also a challenge to transform the entire manpower which was dealing with delivery of the postal products into a banker. Now these people were supposed to understand first, get the conviction, and then only can deliver to the customers the way we want to do. Otherwise it will fail. So the entire training module that we have created for them for the entire banking content was translated from the very much of distribution point itself was a starting point for us. And then the customer service was also being given in all these interfaces that I talked about. So if you go to our mobile banking app or the merchant app or the micro ATM app or website, so we have started doing that. In our communications, let's say, for example, when we do it, both, the mainline media usage, mass media, as well as the digital, we try to do as much in the local languages with the segmented approach and with the regional focused communications. That's where we also follow it to the extent possible. Sometimes we stick to English, Hindi, but then yes, our attempts are always, most of the time, if we make the radio jingle, we have all the languages jingle available, which is getting played out mostly in 13 languages, which is mapped to the all states in the country, and that's how we deliver our communication as well as services to the customers.
Awesome. Thank you, Vishwanath. So I think that really brings us to an end of pretty enriching discussion. We heard views from such a wide variety of industry and great experience and how people have used technology in the most difficult of times. But if I really try to get some common themes, I think we all pretty much were agreeing that technology will improve, and so the overall trajectory is gonna go higher and higher. But the real crux is to understand the customer, right? Because digital was born to give customer this edge, this flexibility, this choice. That should not be diluted. So we have to understand our customer much more, with our own individual context, continue to give them the choice, and always be with them at their disposal to respond. Irrespective of the channels, whether you would respond through digital channel or physical. And the lines are getting blurred as we talked about the term digital, but be there. Never force the customer to a digital journey when the time or moment probably is not right. So great conversation. Bhavna, do we have time for a couple of quick questions, or we will bring this to an end?
No, Shobhadip, we are already exactly on the time. We
Okay.
really have to conclude with this because we've got our upcoming panelists already waiting for their panels starting. But with this, I'd really like to thank you for your moderation, and thank you to all our eminent panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.